Justice is blind, and that is why it cannot see the truth. Before I end this review of chapter 166 of Jujutsu Kaisen, please do me a favor, leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I got Pencil here, and here we are to review chapter 166 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as Tokyo #1 Colony 6. And we open up quite spicy, in fact, because we get to see a bit of Higuruma's past. And the thing is, we knew to a degree that he was already like amazing in terms of what he did. He was naturally gifted in all things he could ever do, and thusly it makes sense that this would apply directly to his abilities as a litigator, as a person of the justice system. And we see someone walk up to him and ask him a question, and the question is, why not be a judge? He's already working to become a lawyer or a prosecutor. However, he should just be a judge. He's that amazing at what he does. He can literally use one of his drafts for a verdict. And now, notably, I don't know anything about the lawyer world, and I'm assuming a draft isn't a final version, and they're already saying that they could use that draft for a verdict, which is insane. And that's just how good Higuruma is. But when offered the position, we cut away. And I think that's interesting because we cut directly to the verdict of what last week's chapter said. Guilty, confiscation, death penalty. That's what Judgment declares. And then the hammer that Higuruma wields actually becomes the executioner's sword. The heaviest sentence that Judgment can enforce is death penalty supplemented with confiscation. As confiscation will take away his opponent's cursed technique, which in regards to Itadori is his cursed energy. And Higuruma is granted the executioner's sword, which apparently can kill without any exception because it is made to do so. Now, notably, I wonder if this is just due to the domain. I wonder what the limits of this sword are, because obviously I feel like that's a little bit capped. But I'm ready for people to be out there and being like, hey, executioner's sword, Solo's your favorite verse. I'm waiting for it. I know it's going to happen. But regardless, this seems like an interesting power because this seems to transcend what Higuruma's place originally was. Like, even as he raised himself from judge, jury, and executioner, it seems like he was judge. That's why he wielded the hammer. Now that he has to become the executioner, he gets the blade, the executioner's blade. Okay. See, Akutame, he's really, really good. I've said it once and I'll say it again, but that's actually really good transition. Also, the paneling is really, like, in this panel where we get to see Higuruma wielding the executioner's blade, like, the blade itself is so sharply defined that it's almost like a panel in of itself, and it's already like slicing through Itadori's hood. That's a really cool just panel juxtaposition there. I really, really like that. I appreciate that. But notably, we see that we're getting to see Higuruma's thought process. He's talking about how being someone like him, he's able to empathize with people. I can't say that right. Sympathize. I feel like I'm consistently saying that word wrong, but empathize with people. He's being able to understand a person's flaws, the reason they have those flaws, whether they be a victim, an assailant. Day after day, he understands all those things. But due to his ability to understand, due to his insane comprehension, he's grown tired of it. He gets sick of it because he finds this weird, wrong nature within them. It's not a flaw that he can overlook. It's not something he can ignore, and thusly he's sickened by it every time he notices it. And he sees the same flaw in Itadori, and he literally directly tells Itadori that he's no exception. And he goes on this entire rant about how people are hideous and disgusting and nasty and flawed, and no matter how noble they want to be, no matter what they try to be, they will end up being nothing but monsters and filled with darkness. And even if they try to cast a noble light out into the world, there's going to be nothing but darkness that'll greet them. And it's an interesting break in Higuruma's character, because notably this suggests that Itadori directly is something comparable to his biggest failure, like the guy that he was working with all those chapters ago not getting acquitted and just being put to death anyway. That is what broke him and made him summon Judge Man in the first place and allow him to unlock cursed energy. Meanwhile, that is also the only time we've actually seen Higuruma break and yell and scream and stuff like that. Meanwhile, this thing that Itadori just did, the admittance of the Shibuya incident, has snapped him in such a way that Higuruma screaming again, and it's amazing to see. Like, this is just a sharp contrast to everything we've seen. Even when he was fighting Itadori before, he didn't have this like tense look to him, this tense feel. But now that he's wielding the Executioner's Blade, now that he has this at hand, he's out there, he's ready, and he's on the hunt, essentially. And it's amazing to see the flip here, because it's something I didn't really expect from Higuruma, especially the way he was introduced or reintroduced to us when he first met Itadori. This wasn't something I expected to see, but this snap, this breaking emotion is really interesting to see, and it's cool to see how Higuruma instantly adapts. Like, notably, he went from wielding a hammer to a blade, and I'm not no weapons master out here, but I feel like those are two very diverse and different skill sets. But he manages to do it just fine. Like, Itadori, using his superhuman speed and strength, manages to blitz behind some chairs and just get the launch in them. He's just throwing chair after chair after chair, and Higuruma manages to perfectly slice through all of them to the point where he's actually able to see. Actually, wait a minute. All right, look at it. Does he actually slice through any of them? No, he doesn't even slice through them. He just dodges them all. That's amazing. He literally dodges them all, and then he gets faked out because he sees Itadori's hoodie, and he like goes to swing for it. But in that moment, he realizes that, wait a minute, that's just a hoodie. And then we get to see Itadori, who's taking the shirt off, showing off them gains. Okay, Itadori, I see you've been hitting the gym, and like a whole city full of people. No, I'm kidding. I know that was so cool, but still, he literally launches the shirt. And Itadori, once again, like I mentioned in the bulk review, that Itadori has this weird superhuman physicality about him that I just love in characters, but also Itadori's fighting style. This is something I truly appreciate. Like, this manic, like high intense movement, the fake out with the shirt to blind Higuruma to the leg sweep, which Higuruma, like, we gotta talk about how insane these two combatants are just relative to each other. I know Itadori is heavily nerfed. He doesn't have access to any of his cursed energy, meaning he can't amp any of his movements or reactions like that. And at the same time, Higuruma is amped by cursed energy and even has the Executioner's Blade. But at the same time, like, Higuruma being able to dodge a base Itadori who's like swinging to go do a leg sweep, like he's able to instantly do that while his sight's being blocked. That is crazy. And these two go to swing for each other. Like, Itadori comes up with the uppercut, meanwhile Higuruma's swinging out the Executioner's Blade. But then we cut back to the flashback, and we get to see that Higuruma chose to not be a judge, and it's because supposedly he's not interested in promotions. But he, in the middle of that, he says all people are flawed and hideous. And notably, I feel like the reason that line is interspersed in there is because Higuruma didn't believe himself worthy to be a judge, because when he says all people are flawed and hideous, he is including himself in that statement. He views himself as flawed and hideous, and thus he doesn't feel like he's worthy to pass judgments and verdicts upon other people, mainly just fight against it to hopefully get a verdict against other people. That is, it's so spicy. I appreciate that. Thank you, Akutami. It's delicious. But then we even get a flip on the context, because he says he actually realizes something, and it's cool to see, because this is likely a modern Higuruma thought process post Cursed Awakening, because notably he says all people are flawed and hideous, but he doesn't necessarily that's a bad thing, because he notes that up until this time he sees that this impurity that isn't present in other creatures is something that should be like relished, it should be cherished, it should be something that we appreciate, it's something that makes us human, something that makes us different than all of the creatures on this earth. And it seems like this natural impurity that makes people flawed and hideous is almost absent from Itadori. And it's revealed that this admittance of the crime, the reason that he believes this is absent in Itadori, is because he admitted to the crime of doing those insane things to all those people when he didn't have to, because apparently Higuruma knew that this was Sukuna that took over Itadori's body and committed that heinous act. It wasn't actually him, because Judge Man apparently, in that flash moment when Itadori declared a retrial, shared the information with Higuruma without him even having to open the evidence file, because the evidence file was against the opponent necessarily. It doesn't mean that Higuruma can't look at it before it's revealed to the opponent. The domain is obviously meant to help the wielder of the domain. Well, the domain is obviously meant to help the wielder of the domain win. It doesn't necessarily care for the other opponent or being fair. So he knew that the demon inside Itadori, Sukuna, is what killed all those people. So that makes Higuruma wonder why, as he gets this beautiful shot of Itadori's eye, it makes him wonder, why did he admit to that? And it's and Higuruma, in that very moment of doubt, that moment of hesitation, he closes his eyes and he dispels the executioner's blade. He shuts down his cursed energy and takes this mean, and I mean meaty, gut punch directly from Itadori and just sends him flying into the chairs. And he actually eats that pretty fine. Like, sure, he is bleeding at the mouth. Obviously, that punch would have probably just killed a regular dude, if we're being completely honest. But he ate that, and we see that Itadori's like, hold on, wait a minute. Why did we stop fighting? Like, Itadori, as amazing of a character he is, he still is a little meatheadish, but I think that's what makes him human. So I do appreciate that. And then we get to see that Higuruma goes into this whole thing of like penal code or like technicalities in the whole judicial system. Like, if a person lacks cognitive ability or capacity or control, they are considered non-compos mentis. You had your body taken over by Sakuna at Shibuya. Meaning, that means you had no control over your own actions. Plus, you didn't willingly give control either, which means you're innocent. You're not at fault. So, why? And I think that's really, really cool, because it's weird. Like, Akutami managed to tie in this guy's day job, so the main reason why he didn't follow through with the execution, which was related to his curse technique, which ended up leading to this whole situation. Akutami, like, amazing writing. I don't know. I love this writing. And then we get to see that Itadori's main question is like, yo, bro, how'd you figure out about Sakuna? And the thing is, Itadori doesn't actually really answer. Or no, Higuruma doesn't actually really answer. He's like, whatever, doesn't really matter. Essentially. And then Itadori ends up answering the question that Higuruma asks. Like, well, indirectly asks. To be fair, he didn't actually say why. He's like, well, I did admit to it because it's still my fault. The reason he took over is because I'm weak. And Higuruma has this moment of contemplation as he's looking up at the ceiling. And honestly, this is reminiscent to how he was in the bathtub, just straight laying back, staring up at the ceiling, thinking. And he's like, all right. And we see that the main reason Higuruma ended up deactivating his curse technique, and I'm assuming Itadori has his curse energy back, it's because Higuruma decided to go back to his roots. At the end of all things, he's a criminal defense prosecutor or criminal defense lawyer, and thusly it would have been wrong for him to just become an executioner of someone who was innocent, especially when he knew for a fact this person was innocent. There was no doubt in his mind because he was literally told that he was innocent because he just got taken over by a demon. That's in no way Itadori's fault. However, Higuruma's like, you know what? That's fine. I completely understand that. Because people as weak as you are probably still around. And it's because this weakness is like, it's honestly the same sort of situation that the original criminal he was defending that led him to snap was in, but in a completely different context. Like, both are being framed for the context of another's actions, and both are suffering for it when they had no control over someone else's actions and the framing that it was put under. I think that's great that Higuruma, through this interaction with Itadori, through this interaction with our cog of a main character, is able to retrace back what made him him. I think that's really, really cool. And we see that Higuruma has decided to give up his 100 points. And that's actually a really, like, honestly, this was an end to the fight that I just wasn't really expecting. If I'm being completely honest with you, I thought, in my simplicity, I thought, oh, Itadori's going to have to battle him, and then he's going to win, and then they're going to have a whole talk about, like, you see, I did do it, but I really, I think about it, that's me not reading Itadori's character very well, because of course he would admit to it, and of course he would try to take responsibility for it at every means necessary, because that's just the kind of person Itadori is. I think that's great. And then we get to see that after Itadori gets his clothes back on, that Higuruma asks him one simple question: have you ever killed someone out of your own volition? And Itadori admits it. He has. I'm assuming this is all the cursed and transfigured humans alongside his bloodlust from Mahito, and on top of that, the twins Chizu and Ebisu. I think those are the names. Those are also Naruto characters. So I may be completely wrong, but regardless, he also killed the two blood brothers that he actually ends up kind of being related to. So yeah, but then we get to see that Higuruma sympathizes with Itadori because he's like, I understand that. They must have felt the worst. Then we cut back to Higuruma. Oh, darn it, I just read that. There's a break next week. But sorry about that. Regardless, we see that Higuruma also feels the same, and he understands Itadori's feelings essentially because he also killed people of his own volition, and these are the people that rendered the guilty verdict against the guy that he was trying to defend. And we see at the very end of the chapter, their heads are busted open by the mallet that Higuruma wielded against them, and that ends our chapter. And there's a break next week. Story sweet. When is it gonna be? I understand. I'll go tell me his health. That's why I feel bad. Like, Hangaka are in such bad situations that their health is off. He needs the break. Let him have his rest. I'm proud of him. Just let him do. Oh wait, is there a universal break next week? I'm not sure. It's because it's Thanksgiving. But does Thanksgiving matter over there? I don't think so. It may just be Jujutsu Kaisen on break. But regardless of that, this is still an amazing chapter. I love everything about this, what it reveals about both of our characters. Like I said, I didn't predict this at all, and who knows? Better people out there, better story analysts, better people who understood Itadori's character better than I did, probably could have easily predicted this. But I think from the fact that it managed to recontextualize Higuruma as a person who both hated and valued the ideas of the human's impurity, to Itadori being a character who, in a way, is so pure of heart that he actually managed to crack through Higuruma's shell and make him realize the goodness in people's hearts once again, and how that could possibly be good, and how he does not have the right to be both judge, jury, or no, all three, judge, jury, and executioner, and how he ended up literally taking the hit, taking Itadori's pain directly directed to him, and laying down, actually talking to Itadori and having a conversation, to Itadori resolving and getting the 100 points from Higuruma in an actual non-violent way. All of that really, really, really cool. I'm honestly wondering how Megumi is going to top this. Like, we haven't seen him in a little bit, but like, how is Megumi going to go up against whatever his name, I think his name was Jeff. Like, how is he going to go up against Jeff and have like a comparable fight? There may be better action in that fight. Even then, the action in this chapter was really cool too. Like, the dynamics of these two as warriors, like Itadori being a person purely based in like raw strength, speed, and power. Meanwhile, Higuruma just seems like a more technique-based fighter who's moving with such grace and fluidity. It's just great. Like, honestly, despite this being a really short fight, this is one of my favorite fights in the series just because of what it means for both characters and how it continues to push the narrative of Itadori being a cog who's willing to pay for his actions, while it recontextualizes Higuruma as a person who's willing to understand people no matter how hideous their flaws may be. That is amazing. I love this chapter. 10 out of 10. Straight up, this was a 10 out of 10 chapter for me, and it deserves the break. This is amazing. From the artwork to the designs to everything in this chapter, wonderful. But those are my thoughts on the chapter. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off.